Hey everyone, let's see, we're going live with Laurren today. I want to welcome everyone back to the Ambitious Groomer. As you know, these lives, I always sit there and I typically say I don't meet any of these people until like our lives. And I just met Laurren for the first time face to face probably 5 minutes ago. So, but we feel like we know each other. I want to state why I have Laurren on here. And we're just going to organically go through this conversation. But Laurren and I have decided that we feel like we know each other because we have a lot of mutual friends and that we keep hearing about each other. And I've seen you pop up a lot. So I love what you're doing for the industry. Background for myself, I hate numbers. If anyone sees any of my seminars, I always say I don't like numbers. I don't do numbers, but I know my numbers. And I think that there's a huge difference. I'm very fortunate enough to be able to have my husband who does like the number side and shifts everything off to Crystal. We went ahead and just this year signed up with Crystal.
Yeah.
I know you are working really really next to each other with with Crystal. So Laurren's popped up as a bookkeeper, and I love when it's grooming people who have turned into the business side of all of this. So, Laurren, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you introduce yourself and what you're doing and up to.
Yeah, so it's actually funny. I feel like everything been doing like the past, 9, 10 years is finally all coming together because 9 years ago, I was actually working at a CPA firm doing a lot of the tasks that I'm doing now, and it was middle of tax season. So, my boss was super, happy that I was starting this business in the middle of tax season because I kind of grew up, working with poodles. My mom had a lot of them. I can remember being 9 years old, learning to trim, clipper face and feet, and saying, I am never going to do this as long as I live. I joke and say that I have found out more things in life, job wise, that I didn't want to do than what I actually wanted to do. So all of this is kind of coming together, but I worked at the vet when I was a kid too, and I learned a lot there. And like so many of us groomers, I'm like, I think I want to be a vet. That's kind of how a lot of us get started.
Me.
And I worked in the clinic, everything was good. And one of the things the vet always told me was whether you choose to pursue becoming a veterinarian or you choose to pursue another route, there are a lot of great people out there that are great veterinarians, but they're terrible business people. So the best thing you can do for yourself is have some sort of fundamental business education. So at the very least, it would be beneficial for you to minor in business. So I went to college, and of course, I went in with a science major thinking I'm going to go pre-vet and everything. And let me just tell you, chemistry, biology, and everything else all at once is a lot. So I said, okay, this is really stressful. I'm going to take a little bit of a break of a second, and maybe I'll just focus on my minor, which is the business courses. Well, I went to the business courses, and there wasn't the struggling part for me. Like, it was very natural, it was very easy, and I had a lot of friends like comment about, wow, you seem much happier, and like you actually seem more excited to be pursuing this than you ever were, your science classes and the vet stuff. So that continued on. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in accounting. I went on and entered a master's degree. I also have an MBA, and I got a job at a CPA firm right out of school. And that wasn't all that I thought it was going to be. And I didn't picture myself sitting there for the next 30 something years, working 9 to 5, overtime during taxes, just in my cubicle. And I met somebody there that she was also a CPA, and she's a really good friend and supports me a lot these days too, who was like, you're just really outgoing. I can't picture you doing this for the rest of your life either. Looking back on my life, I kind of wish I would have stepped out and done something different. And she really encouraged me to go for it. So I said, okay, well, you know what? I was showing dogs at the time, and that takes up a lot of time in itself, especially.
Uh-huh.
And I was spending my weekends and evenings doing that. And I'm like, you know what? Let me see if there would be an interest in, grooming as well. I knew a lot of people in the industry from showing dogs and everything. And I kind of started at my house doing it. And of course, I had, all the proper licenses, your kennel license, your business license, LLC, all of that. And was like, let me kind of see how this is going. And within a couple of weeks, it was exploding. At that point, I was basically making more doing dog grooming than I was working in my full-time job at, the professional.
Yep.
I've worked all these years in school to get here that everybody says, oh, I'm part of the generation where it's almost like you have to go to college to be successful. And that's really not true at all. But it was almost like that was just like the whole stigma of it. It's like, if you don't go to school, you won't be successful. And, I'm very much an advocate for not just grooming, but just like trades in general, because so many people have kind of got sucked into that. And now we have too many people in that. And now we don't have people to come fix our electric, to come do our plumbing, that type of stuff, or, groom our dogs, obviously. So it just took all for me. And, I was deciding to, okay, I'll kind of ease into this, go part-time at my CPA firm job, and then go full-time. And then here came my husband. I needed so much help. And then, within 6 months, we both were doing it full-time. And we celebrated our 9-year anniversary of our business 2 days ago, actually. So it's come a long way. And how I kind of came back to it, and it's actually funny what we've been saying lately. It's like 9 years ago, we were figuring out how to get away from accounting and more into grooming. And now it's like we're getting a little more away from grooming, kind of more back into there. So it's kind of reverse. But what I like about this most is I started with kind of teaching groomers, because groomers, we know, are sometimes not the best with their money. And they make a lot of money, but they're just kind of not really keeping track of it, and they have no idea where it goes. So I had started kind of teaching people. I have the transformational solution side, teaching people how to manage their money, create budgets, savings, retirement. And I was also doing a lot of like individual counseling with people and kind of figuring out, okay, this is what's going to work with you. And inevitably, everybody was bringing in their business financials to it. And a lot of them, they were paying for services for bookkeeping and having everything done. And they did not have accurate books to really be able to look at. This would be here in December, and nothing had been done on their accounts since August. And in order to make informed decisions with how much you can pay yourself and run your business, you have to know how much money you have. And when you have that info, it makes things a little tricky. So I started looking, and I'm like, there are a lot of people who actually need help with this. And boom, it transitioned into doing the bookkeeping stuff again, and then adding on, the payroll and other stuff too. So it's basically like my worlds are all colliding together now. But what I love most about it, and what I did not love with working with a CPA firm, is there's too much going on. And that's not necessarily how I process. Like with the CPA firm, you'll be dealing with accounts that are restaurants, hotels, construction, everything. And you never feel confident, because it's almost like you'll run into these problems, you learn these problems, and then with each different industry and their different issues, there's like 5 more things you realize you didn't learn, or you have to figure out. And not that I don't love learning, I do. It's just when there's that much going on at once, it's really hard to, keep track of everything and feel confident in what you're doing. So now bringing it into this aspect of life and just working on, the niche of it with working with groomers, like I love it. I feel like I'm helping people, making a difference in their lives, and also explaining to them things in a way that makes sense. Now you could, toss a pebble and find, a accountant, CPA anywhere locally. But having the industry connection of it and being able to relate to these people makes it so much better. And I look back when I was in school, and you're sitting there learning about, like an S Corp or an LLC. And you're not, when you are a 20-something-year-old college grad, and it's just your job to explain this to people, there's no passion about it. And it sounds silly, but I get so fired up when I'm helping people with their stuff and I'm looking and seeing they're not an S Corp, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we could be saving 15% every year, 15%, and you're making the six-figure income. That would change your life. So looking at it from the personal perspective and being in the industry, and just really all the experience of it, there's so much like passion that's now been ignited with it and helping others. So that was a very long about getting into the story of how we got here, but I feel like all of it just kind of has like an important place in kind of getting to the point that I didn't necessarily wake up one day and say, I'm going to offer bookkeeping, because that's actually my background and what I kind of thought I'd be doing for my life, accounting. And then I got into the dog grooming, and I kind of thought I had closed that door, except I'd kind of been still kind of working with my own accounts. And I was always somebody, because people kind of knew my experience, that they would come to and ask questions, or we would kind of talk. And I kind of had, more of that educational background. So I always felt like I was a resource for people. So being able to put both worlds together, and it's actually where I think I've really always wanted to be in life. I just hadn't figured it out until recently. So it's awesome.
No, I love it. So gosh, there's so many things, and I think I want to pull you back on here because we won't get too much into it for personal budgeting. I do want to throw out there, so a lot of my audience is people who want to grow with employees and don't know how to, and all of that. And that's actually one of the perks we offer our employees. So I may not be the numbers person, but we do budgeting. We actually are debt free, so we run our business debt free.
Yes,
we went debt free at the worst time in our life. Well, I don't want to say the worst time. I had just started the business, and so I wasn't pulling a paycheck. It was only my husband at the time. We have 2 kids, and I read Dave Ramsey's book, and
yes.
And I actually read it a year or 2 before we implemented it. And I said to my husband, I'm like, here, I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, because when you don't have a place for your money, and you're going to, this, when you don't have a place for your money and you're just all willy nilly, it is so easy to spend all of it. And it took literally, we didn't have a lot of debt. I have to say, we are very fortunate. No student loans. Our credit card, we had 2 car payments, but like our credit cards were maybe at most 10 to 15,000, which by today's standards is not that much. And that was between the 2.
They added it to
exactly. So,
like 8 credit cards.
So, when people say we can't make enough money and stuff like that, and I think that like I said, this is a little bit of a digression, but I would love to pull you back on, because one of the biggest things I know what, let's say, my groomers make and stuff like that. And when I hear people say we can't make it in this world, I'm like, that is not true. So
and more money is not going to solve those issues if you do not have a handle on what you're currently working with, because more money is just going to amount to more problems.
So I would love to. I love that aspect about how you started. That is something that we actually offer. So I always talk, when you start your business and you start adding employees, you don't have to offer big extravagant perks, right? You don't have to do 401k. That took a while for us to build up to. You may not be able to do health insurance right away. All the things that you want to work up to, you may not be able to do, though some states now require paid time off. Ohio doesn't. I'm in Ohio. But you can work your way up to some of these things by good bookkeeping as well, and knowing your numbers. So you can start out with something as simple. If you learn how to budget your own personal life, you can offer that as a bonus for your employees. They know that they can go to, that's Todd's wheelhouse, that's my husband's wheelhouse, that they can go to him and he'll help set up a budget. He'll assess the finances, he'll assess all that other stuff, and then go from there. So,
but they have to stick with it.
That's the hard part. You got to do the follow through, and that's usually where people don't have, but at least they have a map and it's up to them. So I love that about you. And I love that that's where you started with, was helping people with their personal finances. So I will definitely be asking you back to go over that whole aspect of everything.
Yes.
That's a whole nother, but I love that. But yes, we are debt free. We started, to the point our house is paid off. We have no car payment.
Oh my gosh,
we got up to there. Nice chunk goes into retirement. Kids have their college fund. It really saved our butt. I wasn't making, let's see, I think I just started pulling a paycheck when my husband got laid off from his job. And the nice part is because we started the baby steps, we actually didn't have to worry about him finding a job right away, and he could help in the business for a little bit before he found his next job. So like it really, you want to know where a lot of your stressors come from, learning your budget. Okay, but that's not the point of this. The whole point of this though is to talk about the bookkeeping and the numbers. And I hated it when I ran it. So my husband joined in 20 he quit his job in 2020 right before we got shut down.
Oh, great.
Awesome, right? Nice part is S Corp, paid myself as an employee. Who would have ever thought an owner needed, unemployment? Yep. The staff and the employees, everything was taken care of. We were actually fine being debt free. We didn't have to really worry about, we didn't have to care so much about not having his paycheck come in. So but before that, I had an accountant, a generalized accountant. He was not the greatest, but he was a pencil pusher and a numbers person. And that's really all I needed. I needed someone to just help me put aside all the money and stuff. But as we grew, you obviously need more than that. And I am so about outsourcing where you need to outsource. And bookkeeping is most certainly one of those. I see a lot of people who say they do their own books, but what are your thoughts on people doing their own books?
It depends on what they're doing, what platform they're using, and what their goals are. Now, if you are, and I do want to preface this with, I have a lot of new business owners that have started up, or they're actually planning to start up within the next few months, that are actually signed on with me for monthly work because they already realize that this is not something that I want to do. And I was recently listening to an accounting-based podcast that was talking about in other countries, specifically Australia, when people open a business, the first thing they do is get somebody to help them with their books. Whereas here in the States, we're typically like, oh, let me make a little money before I bring somebody on or pay somebody out for that. So I am actually very just like, wow, that these people are, so new, or they barely even started and they've already realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this myself. So a lot of it too is also looking at yourself as an individual, and do numbers make sense to you or do they not? If you're, just getting started or something like that, and you just want to run something very basic on a spreadsheet, if you want to start implementing QuickBooks. But ultimately, I feel like it depends on your growth. Are you going to be a one-person show? Are you, expecting to expand? Because you can run that spreadsheet, but once you start expanding, it may be happening before your eyes. And then by the time you're like, okay, I got to get all this in, I got to start the QuickBooks, get everything going, you have all this back pile of stuff to do, and trying to get everything integrated is going to be more of a headache and a little bit more of a mess than what you thought. So I think the first step in determining if this is something that's right for you is this something that is going to complement my growth? Do I just want to work out of my house? Am I just going to be a one-person mobile? Am I doing, a certain amount of sales per year? Because there are some people, when they start getting into those big numbers and multiple employees, running on a spreadsheet or trying to do things themselves is not going to happen. And I think a lot of people, sometimes they don't implement a bookkeeping accounting, feel like it's going to be expensive. But the way I like to look at it is, okay, it may be a little, out of pocket costs, but how much time, and especially if you don't understand it, are you spending doing this every month, agonizing over it, giving yourself a headache, researching what to do, that you could have spent those few hours doing something you are actually good at, making the money to pay the person for it, and then a little bit of some of your own. So it really depends on the person. I was telling this to Crystal the other day on the podcast. I said to her, I almost want to have something where I hold up a sheet of paper and it has the words asset, equity, liability, and say, if any of these words strike any forms of fear or anxiety, I want you to watching this, turn it off, and go contact your nearest local accounting bookkeeping service or contact me, because a lot of people, and especially with dealing with creative minds, numbers scare them and they can't think and they can't process. Like, I mentioned I went into school thinking I was going to do something in science, and that didn't work for me, but the numbers work well for me. So what I really love is being able to also have the creative mind and break things down for the creative minded people. But also, from the true like number minded aspect too, but just break it down in a way that they can understand. Most people creative minded don't do well with numbers. They see them, shrivel up.
Yeah.
So
and I'm going to,
depends on the person.
yeah, and you can go ahead and steal this too. I say this at all of my seminars, and like I actually, because I love working with non-grooming business owners, because I think that there's this bridge that needs to be, this gap that needs to be bridged so that we can have more opportunities to work at better facilities instead of just feeling like we have to open up our own. Once again, that's a digression, but I love to say, and you can say this too, I speak groomer well.
Yes.
So when you have, I speak groomer well. So like when you have someone then this is why I love finding people who are part of the industry.
Yes.
Because that is a different mindset. We are also a very neurodivergent industry, right?
Yes.
Because we want to work with animals, and we have a lot of these tendencies that simplifying this talk takes away the scary. Like I don't like the words liability or any of those words that you said, because that's not my wheelhouse.
Language.
Right. I'm like, no. I like fuzzy and happy and dogs barking and tails wagging, right? Like that's what we like.
But to run a successful business, accounting is the language of business, and you either need to know enough of those or be able to be in a position to have somebody deal with that for you, and trickle it on down into your grooming language. And definitely there is a bridge with the grooming owners, the non-grooming owners, because I've noticed before when I've even just job postings, a lot of people comment, is this a groomer that owns it or whatever? Because they automatically put up a wall. If you're not one of them, they put up a wall. They're defensive. They're like, well, what do you know? And it's worked well for me being in the grooming industry too, because it's like we don't have the wall. They're like, oh, you're a groomer. I automatically trust you. Here, take my money. And it really comes down to, I think the psychological part of it is them trusting you and knowing that because I tell them all the time, I'm like, if you went down the street and, and this does work good for some people because they need the person in person to sit down and go over stuff. And, whether it's you choose somebody remote like me, or you do need the person that's in person for you, but having to go down the street and, explain like how you do things or talk about, what's going to come through. Like, I had $150 worth of anal gland servicing on this month's, P&L.
Right.
They're going to be like, what? And that's what a lot of them say to me. They're like, I just can't imagine just like going down the street and having this conversation with the person in the suit about I do this or I do that. And especially once you kind of get into the more hobby stuff with your books, like a lot of people put their contests work, their dog shows or trade shows on there. So, kind of explaining some of that. And that's really what's made it easier. I'm just like, say no more. Say no more. I already know what it is. Yeah. But I can definitely imagine some of these conversations and trying to explain what you do, because this is a little bit of a difficult industry to understand if you don't understand it. But also that doesn't discredit, that there are great CPAs out there. There are great accountants out there. It just depends on what's going to work best for you. I've encountered some people that they don't really care about knowing about what their numbers and the details are. So they're fine with it. Then I, encounter some people that we really have built our working relationship upon, knowing the in-depth, like, okay, well, your supplies this month is a little high. Were your employees using a little more shampoo than they need to be? Whereas, if you just use a standard person who does all forms of small businesses, they may not really know. They're just like putting the work in for you and doing it. So that's definitely the added bonus when working with me, because of the industry niche in there, of being able to really get down into the things and kind of already know what's happening without you having to tell me and me kind of already just being, ahead of it for you.
Well, and I used to do when I first started, one of the ways, so you figure when I opened, it was 11 years ago, a whole different ball game pre-COVID.
Yes.
And I joined networking communities, networking groups. I did, let's say, the chamber. I would go to those sort of things. And it's intimidating when you are a blue collar worker, but you're also a business owner.
Yes.
And you're providing this service. And let's face it, another topic too is we're not regulated, which I wish we had some sort of regulation, some sort of standard, I guess, standardization. But when you don't have that, you don't have that, I don't want to say that professional look, but it's harder to pull off the professionalism.
Right.
And
Right.
I was the weird person that they're like, oh my gosh, you groom dogs, and then you also, you can correct
You
me.
want to prove yourself almost.
Yeah.
But you might be making more money than all of them.
Right. And then you almost feel like this commodity, like this weird commodity, like, oh my gosh, now everyone wants to tell you their dog stories. They want to ask you, right? They want to ask you what they should do with their dogs.
Yes.
And then oh my gosh, you groom cats? I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh my gosh, cats need groomed. Yes, they need groomed. So it's like this whole thing. And you're not really there doing it. It makes you feel very awkward. You're not there being productive, learning the things. So I really got apprehensive to go to those events for that reason. 11 years in, 3 locations, 25 employees, not
Wow.
so much anymore. But like now you're talking about if I was a new person trying to go in there, it's very intimidating.
Yes.
So I feel like, oh, now I have these sales to back it up and I've done all this hard work. I can go in with a little bit of a different confidence in my business ownership, but when new owners aren't there.
Right.
So it's always intimidating to talk to people who don't understand the industry. And 11 years ago, we had nothing.
And I was actually talking with someone the other day about I went to this law firm to close on my mortgage and everything. And the lawyer that was there, he was local. And, it's like, okay, this would be a good option if I needed to work with him. But as we're signing off the mortgage papers, he, sees some of the forms about my income and everything and is asking about what we do. And, I'm telling him about our business and everything. And he just starts just like going in about like, I don't understand why people spend so much money on their dogs. My dogs lives outside. If I got it a haircut, it would be once a year. And this is just crazy. And it's just like, these crazy people actually pay my bills. And I don't expect, like a super animal person. But if I had, which, the people that we can deal with in the grooming salon, if one of those people took me to court, I need the person that is representing me to understand, okay, this is how serious it is. This is how serious it is to these people. It's not just some, whatever, and it might be a crazy person or whatnot, but people are serious about their animals. And especially in this day and age when a lot of folks have chose to have dogs over children and a lot of humanizing goes into that, people are very serious about their animals. And like I said, I don't, expect the professional that I'm working with to, feel about it the same way that I do. But just how he was just like totally just like ragging on just like pet people and people who take care of their dogs. And I'm like, well, we have some people that, we groom their dogs every 2 weeks. He just thought that was just insane. And I'm pretty sure he even used the word stupid. But I'm like, this isn't somebody that I would want to work with in a professional capacity with my business because they don't understand it. And if I'm coming in there with an issue with my business, it's already going to be emotional for me, much less me trying to convey to you how big of a deal this is and, just the feelings of it because you already, and like I said, I don't expect you to understand the total ins and outs of my business, but at least, a general, overview of, okay, pets are important to you, the pet's important to the owners, and, just that more empathy for the situation, I guess. So that's kind of where my thought comes into that, like being able to work with somebody who has your back and can already be there. I don't need somebody to hold my hand, but, understand the emotional capacity of it too. And
Right.
that even the emotional capacity comes in with your numbers as well, because you might be a salon who's buying all of these crazy things and like getting the best top of line equipment, and you can't afford it, and you think this is what you need to do. So me being someone who's been there in a salon and also knows the numbers, I can say, look, the mud baths just aren't selling. I know this is really difficult for you to let go of all of these mud bath
Right.
products.
Yes.
We want to offer the best, but we can offer the best in other capacities too. I understand you want to be the best and offer the best top of the line, but you just can't really afford it right now. But let's work out of a plan that we can afford them in increments, but work with what's within our budget now. So it's kind of a silly story getting to that, but that's really what it is. Just being able to connect with people and understand that, because it is intimidating when people don't understand, what your business is about.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun stories on that aspect, trying to tell a CPA that my cat only, so one of my locations is cat only, telling them that, oh, this $11,000 1099 is because we sold cat hair for the year. And they're like,
I want somebody like that right now,
they're
actually.
like, what? And like trying to explain, like, that's such a weird conversation to have with somebody. It's like, no, that's because people buy dirty cat hair, and actually it covers my overhead, and there you go. Like, so they don't understand. So it is sometimes we do have those weird conversations as far as that's concerned. But I do like, so, it's really cool to have you in a back pocket right from the start. So when I started, I had to figure out, so the vet clinic I was at, obviously we could buy whatever we wanted. They didn't care. They didn't actually run their grooming area very well. And they didn't know what they made off of it. And really, they didn't make anything because they overpaid everybody. Anyways, but we used Esprit. And if anyone's ever used Esprit products, you know that there are 20 different SKUs. There are all these different products that they have, right? Really cool when you're an employee and they don't care how much you're spending.
Right.
Pretty different ball game when I opened up my own facility and I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, Crystal's here.
I wanted to say hi, but this is your programming, so I wasn't going to interrupt.
Oh, you can say hi. No, if you can see it, no, say hi. So,
salon, you weren't going to buy coconut cream, the strawberry refresher, the pumpkin spice.
Yeah, no, when I started with all those, and then I'm like, holy crap, I didn't have money coming in, right? Like I was working 10-hour days, building a clientele. I didn't have the funds coming in. And then on top of that, how do you order? How do you keep all of that? Now I figured out, back then I switched over to a generalized shampoo, conditioner, and then 2 different conditioners depending on D-sheds or regular coats. And then we ended up doing a finishing spray, and then we have like a detangling spray. And if the girls want to try other things, they can bring it up. But like, here's the really cool part, and this is what I'm roundabout getting to. This is what, Laurren can do for you. I can tell you, I also have a Cosmos bathing system. I've had it for years. I absolutely love it. I know if I get a new bather in, I'm going through an extra gallon of shampoo. I know how many gallons of shampoo I should be going through with the amount of dogs that we do on a weekly basis. So I can also keep tabs to make sure that a new bather is doing it properly, or I can tell if they're not diluting properly. Right. And I know my budget on consumables. That is huge. That is a huge advantage that a lot of people don't even know. So that is so cool to have somebody who, when they're looking at your numbers, knows what your business is about. And she can be the one to tell you, oh, you're going through this, or like you said, that add-on isn't making you any money. Let's try something different, or maybe try a either more cost-effective product, or you're going to have to raise your pricing. So right there, we talked about in the very beginning about the value, right? And setting aside this money. Have you ever read the book Buy Back Your Time?
I have not.
Okay, it's a really
good to read, though.
It's a really good book. Yes, it's a really good book. I'm actually going to, as soon as I get my website up, I want to start an affiliate link because I was talking to Crystal about like how to become
You
an
talk
affiliate.
about it so much, you might as well link up with them.
Right. I might as well like, here's how you go and do, you know, all these books. I'm like, I want to put all these books on one. Anyways, Buy Back Your Time is really good. It actually talks about how you are exactly your return on your investment. It talks about how valuable you are, and you put a monetary value. So if your time is worth $20 an hour, what can you do with that? You know, and obviously when you're starting, the whole point of it is when you're starting, you start small, right? Like, what can I offset? If I can pay someone $15 an hour and my time's worth 20, I now can focus on things that I want to work on. And then it snowballs into the bigger things.
Right.
It's a really easy read too. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah, I am the book gal.
Well, reading I'm working on with Crystal that I'm like, I'm getting through it. And like, I've been so busy doing other stuff. My husband actually picked up the book and I think he's pretty much read all of it too. So he's still in the end. I'm like, I gotta get back on that, get back on it.
So no, Buy Back Your Time really is a good book for anyone who struggles with, do I invest in this? What is my time worth? You know, if you're worth $100 an hour and you're better off marketing, I'd rather spend $50 an hour to pay someone to do my accounting, right? It is all about trade-offs and how to relook at your time with a value on it. So it's a really good book, any of the listeners out there. And if you guys read it, let me know what you think. But it really does. Where do you want to spend your time? You want to know why we get burnt out? It's because we're spending it on stuff we don't like.
And, you know, I am a creative person in the sense of, you know, the grooming, but just like the big picture. I can come up with ideas, but a lot of the details in those, like me sitting down on Canva trying to pick each individual font, change each individual color, place this, place that, has me banging my head on the keyboard. I cannot do that detailed creativity. And I'm actually working on having somebody do some social media posts for me now, because by the time I sit down for an hour and, you know, format and graphic one post on Canva, I could have been making a lot more instead of wasting my time and my money. I could have spent that hour working and, you know, making 150 or whatnot, than banging my head on Canva, feeling frustrated, and probably not even looking that good.
Yep.
Versus I could pay somebody $100 and they probably could have got me, you know, several weeks worth of content.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you just said it. So you could have made, let's say, $150 if you hired someone for a content creator. I have a virtual assistant, so that's really cool.
Yes, Crystal.
Yeah, Crystal.
Color scheme.
I love Canva. I could sit there and do that. Like, I do all my slideshows for my presentations and stuff, and I've learned how to quickly do them and like get the look I want. But you know, if you can make $150 an hour, let's say doing a consultation, and you can hire someone at $15 an hour for a few hours a week to do your social media, there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I spent 3 hours doing that I could have been, you know, anywhere from 90 to 150 an hour, or I pay somebody for 3 hours of work at $15 an hour. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Correct. So, and that's what the book actually makes you start looking at, which then also, this all goes to where you see the value in hiring a bookkeeper, where you see the value in hiring like Crystal, an accountant, and the tax person, right? She's the tax guru person. Where you can spend. My virtual assistant, best investment ever, because I can have all of my projects, like all these side projects. I never say, listen, some people hire virtual assistants and they don't want anyone to know that they don't do it themselves. I am that person that says, I need help. That's the only way that I could do everything I do. So it is well worth that investment. So outsourcing is huge, especially, and I'm going to full circle this, especially when it comes to the number side of when we open a business. Let's face it, most groomers are trying to get out of a toxic environment, and their only option that they feel that they have, or may only be their option, is to open up a business, and they know nothing about the business side.
And that's like the kind of a total, you know, clashing effect when you do that too. And, you know, let's see, Crystal, I'm always figuring out where I can buy back my time. Yep, she has a house cleaner. She'll tell you about that.
Yeah. That was the first time I'm like, I felt like an adult and I made it, was like when we could hire somebody to clean the house. And I'm like, I think we went on vacation and we just did it the first time and we're like, oh my gosh, we felt like $1,000,000, right? We're like, oh my God. And the stress that it took off of us to not have to worry about, cleaning our house. It was great. But yeah, so cleaning the house. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So where were we? I think I just saw that comment. I was like, oh,
I know, right? Buying back time. Oh, bookkeeping and starting and stuff like that. We're not numbers people. So when it comes to your services, so I know Crystal has been sending you a lot of different clients. So and Crystal obviously is a regular on here, so people are knowing her as the accountant and stuff. What, I guess, the difference between you and Crystal, and what is your niche that you are working with that the people that she is sending to you will fit better in your realm?
Yeah, so with Crystal, Crystal's also kind of working on creating her business community and everything too. She kind of has like her sets of clients, and she's really at the position where she's looking to help people that are really booming in their business. They're expanding multiple locations and kind of more hone in on, like an advisory consult, that type of thing with them and helping them grow that. Whereas with me, I'm happy to work with whoever, but I especially work really well with new businesses and people that are just getting started. They've been at it a couple years, trying to make some changes, figuring out their footings and whatnot. And Crystal and I say we're not married, but we're like dating because everybody thinks we're together.
Yes.
Because I get a lot of people, because almost everybody who I work with has some type of tax thing, or they're working with a CPA or a tax person, and they don't necessarily get it, and they're happy to make the change to her. So I give her a lot of folks too. And it's such a relief for them to have another person on board who understands. And that's what I say, we work as a team. Basically, you'll work with me every month, whereas, you only have to work with her a couple times a year, depending on what's going on. But, that's also a nice thing too, having somebody else on board that understands it, because, there might be something that comes up that I'm like, you know what, I think you're really growing. I think there's more stuff going on. I think she could better assist you with this than I could. Or there may be somebody that she's working with and she's like, yeah, you're kind of a new business, you're getting started. Why don't you work with Lauren? Especially since you're working on like sourcing equipment and everything, she might be able to tell you better ways that are going to suit you in getting started and saving, the most money. Because there are some things, I believe you should not cheap or cut corners on, but there's a lot of things you can save a lot of money on doing, buying from used, and especially, electronics. Like I'm a very much like a refurb person. You don't have to go buy a $2,500 Mac to run your Mogo, Pulfinity, or any of that stuff. You don't have to go buy, the newest and best tables. You can often find grooming salons that are, either dwindling down, retiring, making changes, just getting rid of equipment, that you can buy off of those too. So I think kind of my niche is within the niche is especially working with new businesses. Although, like I said, I kind of, have a grasp of most of it, but we're basically just kind of working together. And I guess at this point, it's almost like a family or family of groomers. And it's so I love it with working with these groomers, because I may have just talked to them a couple times. They're signed on for me to do work, and we've just had some chats, and they'll be sending me pictures of this vacation that they were so excited to go on, or sending me, their win picture from the dog show last week. Or it feels like you're working with friends almost. It doesn't feel like there's a disconnect, because you're in the industry, you have your owner friends, and you're always going back and forth, this employee, this customer, this situation. So now it's kind of doing the same thing, but a little more in depth, and also kind of getting paid for it at this point. So it's really great, and I love it, and especially working with her too, because she is as responsive as I am. Because I always say, if you don't hear from me, know that I am probably likely on a ventilator, and somebody will let you know. There is a problem. And she's kind of the same way too. So, and that's really important, when working with your clients, because there's so many people that they let the ball drop, and we get an influx of people right now because it's tax time. They're panicking. They're going through their books and being like, oh crap, I'm not done through the end of 2024. And they've also been paying for this stuff monthly. So all of a sudden they're like, nothing's done. They're freaking out. And being able to, talk with those people and be like, look, I understand we need to have this done. I'm not going to let you down. You're paying for monthly stuff. We are going to have it to you every month because you can't make informed decisions in your business unless you know what's going on every month.
Right. And, that's like, so there's, as you get more niche-y, as you get bigger, right? On my level, like there's only a handful of people, like you can have a few employees, but as you expand and grow and get to a certain point, it gets lonelier the bigger you get. Yeah, the bigger you get. And same thing like with a lot of the speakers currently. So my niche is organization. Give me your handbooks. Let me design a handbook and get your business organized. Let me help you get your foundation. So then that way you can focus on the rest of this stuff. I also really like to get into helping people become better leaders and what it takes to mentally, the mindset shift that you need to do when you're a business owner with employees. So that's sort of my niche. But then I have, I have like Samantha Pela. She is a business coach. I will take on certain clients that I feel are a good fit, but honestly, there's some things that I can't do. So she loves startup. Dr. Molly and Todd Rowland, they love helping people expand. They love having like the people who already have these established businesses that want to take it to the next level. And it's really cool. I understand what you're saying. It's really cool when you can have people you can refer to that you trust and that that your people will be taken care of, because I like to do like strategy sessions. They're free 30-minute strategy sessions to see where you're at in your business. And then I just help simplify it for you, break it down and like really dissect what we talked about in that 30 minutes and just game plan. Like, hey, I'm not a mobile person. I'm brick and mortar. Molly and Todd are mobile people. So it's really cool when you can have this little group of people that you can refer to.
And this has been a bit of a cutthroat industry, and people get kind of defensive, and they put up their walls, and there's so much business and so many dogs to go around that there's really not enough people to do it all. And like I say, like not everyone is meant to be your client. If you are not on a 2 to 8 week schedule, grooming your dog, that's not somebody I'm interested in. Whereas somebody starting up or having a lot of extra staff, those Great Pyrenees that come twice a year, that might be great for them. But, that's not how I operate. So not everybody is a good fit for you or a good fit with your business. Yep. And it's important to understand that and, work with the community and uplift and support each other. Because I send all of the tax stuff to Crystal. And like I said, if it's somebody that, depending on their books or they're wanting to scale or a lot of things going on, she may be a better advisory fit for them. So it really just depends. But we all can work together and benefit from one another and bounce stuff back and forth. She was busy this weekend and I didn't hear from her. I thought she is awfully quiet and listening to each other. And I was like, maybe we just talk too much. But, there was never, I actually met her off of TikTok. There was never any, there's a competition or this, that. It was almost like, oh, great, there's somebody else. I'm getting really sleepy on bookkeeping, because that's how I am here with my grooming salon. And grooming salon opened maybe 5 months ago. And I'm like, oh, thank God, there's somebody else I can see people to.
Right. Yeah, no, I love this. So, I mean, I think we've really touched base on everything that we said we were going to.
Yes.
I know, and more.
Like, we need an air horn because we'll get so off.
Right? Exactly. So no, I would love to obviously have you back on and stuff like that. How can people find you?
Okay, so for the bookkeeping portion, I am very active on Facebook. It is Transformational, TransFurmational, Transformational Bookkeeping. That's also the website, transformationalbookkeeping.com. There's a little about me, the services I offer, what I do. And if you go on there and go to the contact form on my website, it'll take you to my inquiry page, and you'll just fill out a form telling me some questions, answering some questions about you, your business, how you're set up, what you need. And then there will also be a link if you would like to book a chat like this with me. We can do it on Zoom, phone call, whatever's convenient for you. And I actually have those office hours set up for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So they're very convenient for the salon owner. But if you also needed something outside of that, we can work on something. But yeah, if you head on over there, fill out the form. I will be back in touch with you within one business day, and we'll get everything situated, talk about your needs of your business. I'll get a proposal letter, engagement drafted up to you with a retainer attached that outlines the services I'll be offering you. We'll get everything going. You'll give me access to your accounts, and we'll be on a monthly rotation, much like your dog on a monthly rotation. Maintain it every month. So instead of having a mess or letting your dog go 4 to 6 months without a haircut, we'll keep your dog maintained and do it every month. And by your dog, I mean your books.
I want to also state real quick, I forgot, this is one thing, and we can also have another discussion about this at another time, but I want to throw out there. So we have looked at acquiring other locations, right? If a business comes up for sale, you had mentioned about expanding. Number one thing that we see is that they don't have up-to-date books. And without those up-to-date books, we can't even begin to negotiate close to what they offer or what they want and offer close to what, because we know nothing.
When they don't know how much they really have going on. Correct. I mean, that's a lot of money to not have all your ducks in a row.
Correct. So when you're looking to sell your business, that's another thing. So get in the habit now. So if anyone's looking at it as an exit strategy, I could tell you we had to walk away from a ton of different acquisitions just for that reason, because they couldn't actually provide what the real numbers were, or their real numbers were a little skewed from things. So
just I would like to add to that, which can kind of, reflect on kind of the personal budgeting stuff, is having your ducks in a row. If you think you could potentially be in a position where you need to get a mortgage or you need to get a loan someday, because they will, even if you are an S Corp filing separately, they may want to bring your business into the picture when determining if you're going to qualify for that. So I had a couple years of straight narrow, making sure everything was good to go. And I had absolutely no problem at all getting a construction loan, which then converted to a mortgage, because people talk about being self-employed. It's so hard to qualify, all these hurdles. If you have everything correct and you are turning a profit, it is not any harder. They do not require anything extra than my tax return. So make it easy for yourself. Truly show your expenses and your income, because you might be fwaddling some stuff, and the next thing you know, it's been 2 years of you fwaddling stuff, and they want to see 2 years of actual numbers, and you're not presenting the actual numbers as they are, and you're either not able to qualify for what you need, or you're not able to qualify at all. So it is important to reflect the actual numbers.
Yep. Yeah. Nope. Exactly. So awesome. So thank you so much, Laurren, for coming on, meeting me. Are you having fun? I hope we have fun. I love just having conversations.
Well, there's so many other things we could talk about. We're going to be here for 5 hours.
Exactly. So to anyone listening on a recording, you are more than welcome to ask questions in the chat still. You can do comments. We will catch that we'll get notifications and stuff. So please ask any questions or reach out to Laurren or reach out to me if you have any questions. This will be put in podcast form and will be out next week. So I'll let Laurren know that as well. So if you are more of a podcast person, that'll be there as well. So thank you, Laurren, for being here. And we will probably have, Crystal doesn't know this, but it's probably Crystal next up that we'll get on the schedule again. So
all right. Well, I had fun. Thanks for having me. I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.